Greetings once again, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome once again to Salone for All and Voice for All Network Television. I am your host, Khadija Tejan Nabie. It is an honor and a blessing to have with us tonight Dr. Richard Konteh. I will pause here for now and have him come in and introduce himself, and we'll dive right into today's interview. Welcome once again, sir. Come on in and introduce yourself to the world.
Yeah, thank you very much. I am Dr. Richard Konteh, born into a family of 8 children.
Is it possible that you
Our
adjust your
late
camera
father,
down a little, sir? I'm sorry. It seemed like we changed the position a little and now your face is cut off. We don't want that face to get cut off. Perfect. A little bit more. Yes, great. Wonderful. Yes, I think you're good to go. Go ahead, sir. Come on in. Sorry about that.
yeah, my late father was Mr. KB Konteh. He was a teacher. My mother was Alice Burma Konteh. Both of them are now late. I was going to a family of 5 boys and 3 girls. We since lost one girl, Edna, and we also lost the youngest boy, and Mami. The rest of us are still alive. Stephen is the eldest, Agnes, then myself, Richard, we have William, Hudson, and then Elizabeth.
First and foremost, we want to send out our condolences to your family for the loss of your siblings and your parents, of course. Having said that, let's go to some other question that Sierra Leoneans or folks beyond the Sierra Leone community that may not necessarily know about you. Let's start with your primary school and secondary school. Just to be curious, what was your secondary or primary school that you attended in Sierra Leone?
Well, I attended several primary schools because my father was a teacher and he used to travel around the northern province. I started my primary school in Babure. That's a village 5 miles away from Kamakwe in the northern province. Then I moved to Kamabai. From Kamabai, we moved to Bendembu. From Bendembu to Kalanga, where I took the selective entrance examinations. Then I went to St. Francis Secondary School and I did my secondary education. From there, I moved on to my village, Bendembu, where I completed my secondary education and moved to University of Ghana.
Interesting. Go ahead. You want to say more? Go ahead.
At Jala, I did my undergraduate degree in geography and English, and then I taught for some years. Then I moved to Germany, where I did my first master's degree in development planning and management. It is currently offered at the University of Dortmund in Germany and the University of Science and Technology in Kumasi, Ghana. I came back to Sierra Leone, lectured for a few years, and then went back to Germany for my PhD in
Wonderful.
development planning.
Yeah. Keep going. You're welcome to go further.
Specialty in development coordination. That's my specialty. My second master's degree I actually got at Jala, and it was in geography, but I specialized in demography. So I have 2 master's degrees and a PhD.
So beautiful. Refreshing to hear that. You sound anyway, we'll go into that a little bit later. So what can you recall about your primary and secondary school? And one thing I noticed, it is obvious that you share the same secondary school as that of the then president, His Excellency Dr. Ines Baikroma, correct?
Not correct. He did not attend St. Francis Secondary School. He attended the boys' school, Magogo.
Oh, I see. Okay. Okay, so it's two different.
But he taught in St. Francis.
I
So he
see.
was our teacher.
Okay. Okay, wonderful. Good, good. So many will say or believe that there is no better individual to know you other than yourself. From your perspective, how can you describe Dr. Richard Konteh?
I think I am a very cool, calm person, but somebody who is very passionate about what I believe in, and I can stand for what I believe in, and I can defend what I believe in.
You have been blessed with opportunity to work with the former president, His Excellency Dr. Ines Baikroma. Describe him as an individual and as a statesman.
Dr. Ernest Baikoroma is a very cool, calm, and disciplined person. He's very passionate about what he believes in, and he believes in delivering results. He's very much output oriented. And one thing I know again about him is that he loves this country, Sierra Leone, dearly, and can sacrifice anything for the good of Sierra Leone.
Thank you. Now, let's go to, since you just described him, I want to further stay in that direction before we come back to you. Dr. Ines Baikoroma faced a whole lot of calamity, which you were part of that administration, from the deadly Ebola epidemic to the mudslide to the flood disaster. As a result, we lost countless Sierra Leoneans. Categorically, I want you to use this opportunity to explain to us how did you contribute in a positive way during those specific area. As let's start first with the Ebola epidemic. What was it that you did as a team to help during that time? And also, do you believe that your administration, the Dr. Ines Baikoroma administration, did everything in their to the very best of the ability initially prior to the Ebola coming into Sierra Leone to prevent the Ebola disease? Do you believe that your administration worked tirelessly to see that you were able to tackle it or to minimize the spread of that deadly epidemic?
Yeah, thank you very much. Let me first of all make one clarification. I was not part of the government for much of the time of the Ebola outbreak. That was their preliminary periods of the Ebola.
Gotcha.
And I was in the meetings when we were planning how to counter the disease. I want you to first of all note that nobody expected Ebola. And therefore, nobody could have been very well prepared for Ebola. However, when Ebola set in, the government was very proactive and took the necessary steps. So even after I left government, I accompanied the process. I followed the process very closely, and I knew that even though President Kuroma had set up an office to be responsible for handling Ebola, he was actually the czar himself, and he devoted a lot of his time in ensuring that we were able to contain Ebola, and eventually we were able to bring it under control.
So when you use the word encounter, when you use the word encounter, it is obvious that from what you were saying that there was prior steps taken by the administration in effort to or preventive measures put in place prior to the Ebola entering Sierra Leone. Is that what we're getting from you?
Well, under the prevailing circumstances, yes.
Okay.
Could a lot more have been done to maybe be better prepared? Maybe yes. But under the prevailing circumstances, I think, this government of Ernest Baikoroma inherited a health system that was not one of the best. And we tried during our time to prioritize the health sector and to put in place a range of services, including the free healthcare program, which is really one of his flagship projects for pregnant women, parent of five, and lactating mothers, all geared towards ensuring that we improve upon the health status of our citizens, but more importantly, our maternal mortality, infant mortality, and child mortality rates were among the highest in the whole world. And that was not good for the country, and President Kuroma was determined to ensure those rates are brought down. And so he launched the free healthcare initiative to target that. We also worked on ensuring that there is universal access to healthcare with his other flagship health insurance scheme, which he launched. But that one was not fully operational by the time we left office. But it was an incremental process, and we were determined to ensure that the negative indicators were reduced, and then positive steps were taken to ensure that we have people die going forward.
Thank you, sir. Unpleasant rumors surrounding the Ebola epidemic, allegation from it being stage managed, and Sierra Leonean being used as guinea pig. Please set the record straight, sir.
I am not aware of any such, and the little I know about my president and my government, I would never fathom that President Ernest Bai Koroma will be a party to any action that will threaten the lives of Sierra Leoneans. So that, I think, it's just a figment of their imagination. It is far-fetched. It couldn't have happened.
Were you, I know you kind of touch on it a little bit, were you physically involved, were you outside of the Republic during the Ebola epidemic?
I was in Sierra Leone throughout the period.
Okay, I see. Were there necessary preventive measures put in place to minimize it? I think you've made that clear, right? So you
Yes, I
believe.
mean, I'm sure we know about the lockdowns that took place and the nationwide sensitizations that took place and things like that. I think the appropriate measures were taken.
Thank you, sir. Some sets of Sierra Leoneans will look at a photo that circulated various social media platforms, one that suggested strong emotion of the then president. Apparently, he was crying and devastated during the Ebola epidemic. What do you know about the photo, and also what do you recall about the then president during that challenging time in Sierra Leone?
Anybody who knew President Koroma would agree with me that he was very devastated during that period. In fact, his entire demeanor, his entire outlook were very, very bad. He did not look very healthy, he did not look very happy, and he looked a very concerned person. And I think it was very worrisome to see people dying in those types of numbers. It was not normal in this country, and he was very much concerned about that. And that is why he marshaled the troops. It was an all country approach, regardless of your tribe, regardless of the region, regardless of the political party. He brought everybody on board, including even President Bio. We gave him money to go out and sensitize his people because we believe that the fight against Ebola is a national fight and not a political party fight, and everybody needed to be consciously brought on board to work towards ensuring that we can combat and control it.
Thank you. Let's talk a little bit about the mudslide. What do you recall about that awful event? Do you believe that it was a situation beyond human control, or do you believe that it could have been prevented?
I don't think anything could have been done to prevent the mudslide. It's a natural disaster that could have happened. It is, however, true that maybe the activities of people in the forested areas in terms of human activities, building of houses, deforestation, etc., exposed the landscape. And so, due to the intensive rainfall and the steepness of the slope, we had a situation wherein we had that disaster that happened. But I don't think that there is actually consciously anything the government could have done to prevent it. But what is good is that when it happened, the government took immediate steps to respond to the devastating consequences of that landslide. And I think everybody who was around was pretty satisfied with what happened.
Thank you so very much. What I asked you from this juncture up will focus on you as an individual. I wanted to ask those questions in advance for the benefits of the masses or Sierra Leonean per se, given the obvious of the countless position that you have held within that administration. Thank you so much for being patient with those critical questions. Now, you have been fortunate to lead in various capacity. Out of the many, which one did you enjoy the most and why?
What I enjoyed the most was my time as Minister of Trade and Industry. And the reason why I enjoyed that ministry was because that is one ministry in which you move from one lifestyle to another within minutes. At one moment, you are the Minister of Trade and the market, with traders, rubbing shoulders with traders, interact with traders, and uh, addressing their concerns and their needs to the extent possible. The next moment, you are a diplomat attending international conferences, engaging other ministers, and seeing how you can help talk to investors, to attract investors. You become a lobbyist all of a sudden. You become a campaigner. You become a rebrander for your country. And the next minute, you are a negotiator, trying to negotiate contracts, trying to ensure that we strike deals for our country that will benefit our country. Because, we believed in the President Kuruma government that we needed a vibrant private sector as an engine for economic growth and prosperity. Because we believed in that, we made it a conscious effort to reach out. I remember when President Kuruma called me and said he was going to appoint me as Minister of Trade. The first thing he said, Richard, I want you to make sure that we improve our rankings in the ease of doing business. And that was straight away my challenge. How do we ensure? And that involved working across several departments, several ministries, bringing them together from Ministry of Energy to Ministry of Lands to Ministry of Agriculture to Ministry of Finance to the Accountant General's Office, the OARG, even the City Council was involved. We had to work around the clock to ensure that all the indices that we are looked at were addressed, and we are able to successfully make Sierra Leone the sixth most improved country for ease of doing business. We are also able to attract investors, even including hosting in Sierra Leone an international investment forum that attracted over 300 investors. And it was very successful, and we all saw how the number of companies that were set up improved, how jobs were created, how revenue was accrued to government, and how the government was able to then sustain its operations. No wonder people sometimes start saying, how did they do it? Well, that's part of the secret. You cannot run an economy successfully without the private sector. If you make it your crusade to kill the private sector, then you're actually killing the economy. Because it's the private sector that can create the jobs, pay the taxes, which you will then need to finance your other developmental programs. And that is precisely what President Kuruma did. And we were there as his minister to support them. And as Minister of Trade and Industry, I had to play a particular and coordinating role in ensuring that it happened.
So, based on your submission, it is obvious that that was a success. So, many will be curious as to how did you manage to make it a success?
Well, teamwork. We worked as a team, and we had our team coach in President Kuruma, who led from the front. He ensured that when necessary, he would bring all ministers together and he would read the Riot Act. And he would tell us exactly what he wanted done, and he ensured that we got it done.
So, I see one quality, leadership's quality in you already, wherein you refuse to take the credit as the lead of that department, but rather putting the credit on the team as a whole. Beautiful. That I just noticed.
Precisely. Anybody who thinks he can do it alone in government is making a terrible mistake. Government is everybody working together, and you can only succeed when you acknowledge that others also have a part to play in ensuring your success. And when that success is achieved, it would be really unfair on your part to think you did it alone. That is why we believe that we had to work as a team, but the good thing is that we had a leader that provided the direction for us to follow.
Wow. So you look at it as a collective responsibility, and
Precisely.
when you succeed in your capacity, you look at it as a success for all as a whole, the team. Correct?
Exactly.
Thank you. Let's talk about misconception about Dr. Richard Konteh. things that they may not necessarily understand about you as an individual. Or let's say you listen or read these various social media platform, you may have come across something that you yourself could not even identify about you as an individual. So let's talk about some of those misconceptions.
The greatest misconception or the greatest lie ever told about Richard Konteh was that I, Richard Konteh, forged the president's signature. That is the furthest someone can go from the truth. Because there was really no need for me to ever forge the president's signature. I was his chief of staff. I would take directives from him and I would convey his directives. And I therefore had to append my signature to those directives. So if I had to convey any directive, I would not need to forge his signature. I would append my own signature to that document. So that was the greatest lie that ever happened. And it was paraded all over the place until the courts finally proved me innocent, and until the experts from the CID came to the court and testified that actually it was Richard Konteh's signature that was forged. That Richard Konteh did not forge any signature. And interestingly, the issue, the signature under question at the time was no other person's signature but my signature. The president's signature was never part of any discussion. So I just don't know where people hatched that idea from about Richard Konteh forging president's signature, and it was all over the place. That is the greatest lie that ever happened.
Thank you. Sometimes misconception can be very painful, whether it's being with you or having to do with your family or loved ones. How did you manage to overcome that trial during that time?
Well, you know, I'm a Christian and I believe it well. And I always believe that God has a way of doing things, and the ways of God are not the ways of men. When Joseph's brothers sold him to Egypt, the intention was for him to go there as a slave. But when he got into Egypt, he became a governor. That is God's plan. So for me, sometimes when these things happen, I just accept them as part of God's plan for me. And I try to deal with it in that way. And I just pray, I say, God, oh, please, reveal to me what your true plan is for me, so I can appreciate you and just thank you all the more. That's how I saw all of it. It was painful. Make no mistake about it. It was very painful, especially when I was fully aware that I was innocent. And then the other painful thing, when you know you are innocent and people refuse to believe that you are innocent, is even more painful. And especially when people who you think should normally believe in you. That's the most painful. But anyway, like I said, it's all part of God's plan for me. And I think I've come out of it a better person. I have learned a lot of lessons. I have learned how to deal with situations better. And I think given another opportunity, I'll be able to handle things maybe differently.
So with the obvious, we can consider you or put you in the category of being a high profile or someone that is a public figure. How do you giving us that submission, how do you prepare your family or your loved one, as in your wife and people that do care for you, how do you prepare them to handle or tackle issues as in the example of misconception or defamation of character? How do you prepare them?
Well, you know, when you are in a family, in a Christian family, we pray every morning and we engage as a family. And even when I entered politics, this is something I had to discuss with my family. It was not a decision that I took very lightly. But before I took it, I made sure I had my family on board and we discussed. And I told them the implications of what I was entering into. I told them I could be blackmailed, I could have scandals, anything could happen that is not very positive, but encouraged me. They acknowledged the challenges, but they encouraged me to move on. And I think that support I've received from my family throughout this process, through the difficult times, through the trying times, through the good and the bad times, has really helped to make me what I am today. And I thank God for my family.
Sierra Leone is a land that you and I love, a land that we mean nothing but the absolute best. Many will be curious, how best are you prepared to lead Sierra Leone?
You know, to be able to lead any country, and in this case Sierra Leone, you need to understand what Sierra Leone is. You have lived the Sierra Leone that you want to live. You understand the issues. And so, for you to be able to understand these issues, you should have lived it, having various experiences. I told you earlier on that I started my life as a teacher, untrained, unqualified teacher at age 70. So I have the experience of being a teacher. I also taught as a graduate teacher, a total of 4 years. All this is enough for me to understand what education is all about, the educational system, the challenges people are facing in that sector, and to be able to respond appropriately to those challenges when given the opportunity to do so. I then served as a civil society activist and NGO worker, and rose through the ranks to become head of civil society in the whole of West Africa. So I also understand from that perspective what advocacy is about, what responding to the needs of people is about, the suffering people. So I remember when I was program manager for CRS, going out into the field to monitor CRS programs and to engage with beneficiaries. That helped to understand, and especially when I was working immediately after the war. I remember flying into Konteh, for example, and seeing all the devastations and talking to those people who yesterday were very affluent, but today don't even have somewhere to lay their heads. It helps you appreciate those realities better, and you then be able to respond to them better. Later on, I entered politics, and I started from the Ministry of Finance to the Ministry of Trade, and then to State House. It gave me the opportunity to understand how to manage the economy of this country. And as a development minister at the time, it gave me the opportunity to be able to respond to the development challenges. That is how we were able, under the leadership of President Kuruma, to embark on infrastructure, call it roads, call it water, call it energy, because these were critical to the development of any country. And we worked on that. As Minister of Trade, I realized that traders needed finance for them to be able to do business. But access to finance continues to be a challenge because there is no way you can take a loan of 30% per annum and think you can make profits. It is just a recipe for failure. Even the microcredits that were offered, the interest rates were checked, sometimes 60% or even more. Those were clear recipes for failure. So when I became Minister of Trade under the leadership of President Kuruma, under his director, we made sure we set up the Small and Medium Enterprises Fund and made resources available through the Salone Commercial Bank at 5% per annum, so that small and medium enterprises will be able to do business and make money. We also made sure that when I became Chief of Staff, I improved upon the legacies of my predecessor, Kaifala Mara, and ensured that we brought a whole new paradigm shift in the way people see their jobs and the need for them to deliver. We had the Performance Management and Service Delivery Directorate that was responsible for ensuring that ministries, departments, and agencies delivered on their mandates. When you are appointed a minister, you are appointed managing director of any entity. You have a mandate. You are given resources. You have to deliver on your mandate. So we had all of these things put in place. We also ensured that we had a strategy and policy units to provide implementation support to this ministry, so that the intention was not for any ministry to fail, any department to fail, but rather to support them so that together we can achieve the overall goal of the president. And because when we look back on what we have done, we'll always say, oh yes, we set out to do A, B, and C, we have achieved A, B, and C. And that is what government is about. And so what my experience over the years has helped me to do is to understand the workings of government, understand the challenges, understand the weaknesses, and I think if I have the opportunity to lead this country, I will bring into that office the experience I've gathered from being a teacher, from being an NGO worker, a civil society activist, from being an international civil servant working at ECOWAS, working in the sub-region, and from my experience as a minister in government across various ministries and as chief of staff, actually coordinating the implementation of all government programs. That would help me to understand what happens in every department, ministry, or agency in this country. I think that broad experience, that broad background will put me in a very good position to provide leadership for this country. And in the last 7 years, I've also been in the private sector as a businessman, and I've also experienced the bitterness of what bad governance is, of what hyper taxation is, and of what happens when a conducive environment is not created for the private sector to flourish. And invariably, what that means, therefore, is that you are killing the economy because you are killing the source of revenue for government, the source of jobs. You know, it is only when the private sector people make money that they are able to pay government. So it has to be a win-win situation. It's not us against them. That is the mistake people often make. They think, oh, it's us against them. These people, we have to tax them. When you increase taxes, just keep increasing taxes. What you do is one, you make these business people to find 1,001 ways not to pay. And when you increase taxes, naturally, the business people will transfer the costs to the consumer. Who suffers? Sierra Leone. That explains why we have the hyperinflation in this country. When you increase import duties, for example, you think you are hurting the business people. No, they will export through Guinea and come across the border. Who loses? The government. I would rather reduce taxes, broaden the tax base, capture more people from the informal sector into the formal sector, make our country more competitive, attract more investors. Let them come into this country, they make money, then we levy taxes, reasonable taxes on them, then we generate revenue. When we create the jobs, the government should not be the largest employer. We will just be inbreeding. Nothing happens. The private sector should be made the largest employer. And when they pay, you gain a lot of social capital from that, and that helps to boost your own credentials as a government and overall mandate of the economy. That is what we will do if God gives us the opportunity of coming to governance again.
Thank you. What would be the very first thing you will want to put as priority if God grants you the opportunity to becoming the next president of the Republic of Sierra Leone?
One of the first things I would do would be to tackle the whole issue around the economy of this country. I think I've started telling you that it is not just a one approach. Single, when you are talking about the economy, you look at the revenue side, look at the expenditure side. The revenue side, it's one thing about how do you fix the whole issue around taxation. I don't believe that increasing taxes will increase revenue. No. You have to reduce taxes, put in the tax bracket, capture more people into it, encourage the private sector to come in when you are a bit more competitive in terms of what you offer, your fiscal regime, the incentives that you offer, bring in more investors. That will help. And then at the same time, you identify the leakages, the wastages. You see, one thing we have done over the years is that we don't, especially in this government, the last 3 years, we don't manage the wage bill very well. We just think that we can just keep employing people and then giving them all types of salaries, and then you just float the wage bill for nothing, and you cannot sustain it. You cannot finance it. So you wreck the economy, and everybody suffers as a consequence of that. So you have to make sure that you reduce the wage bill of government and allow the private sector to take that responsibility from you. And that is what is missing. So we'll fix that one. We'll also be able to make conscious efforts to address this whole issue around the need for unity and social cohesion in this country. For me, as a unifier, I believe that the polarization that this country has experienced and continues to experience will never give the right recipe for sustainable peace and development in this country. So we will take conscious efforts to ensure that we reunite this country, make everybody feel a part of the governance structure. Everybody feel that I am a Sierra Leonean, I am valued, I don't need to belong to this party or that party for me to be able to actualize my fullest potentials. We will work on that. We'll ensure it happens. And of course, we'll also prioritize the social services sector to ensure that we fix education, we fix health, and those types of issues. One thing I have always maintained is that this country is endowed with natural resources. When I was Minister of Trade, we helped to develop the local content policy, which is not local content law. Basically, what it did was to say, let Sierra Leoneans benefit from the resources they are endowed with. How do we ensure that happens? So in the local content law, we are saying, let Sierra Leoneans own certain percentages in all business in this country. Let certain key positions at the management level be given to Sierra Leoneans. Let capacities be built to ensure that Sierra Leoneans also tap into these things. Let us ensure that we use local resources. For example, when we came into governance, let's take Brewery, for example. It was run at a loss. We look at content policy, we forced them to use sorghum, 10% in the production of alcohol. Yeah. What that did is to reduce the amount of money they were spending on importation. And they made money. But in the process also, our farmers who cultivated sorghum also made money. So it is a win-win. Brewery made money, the farmers made money, government made money. We did the same for cement. We got them to use granite in the manufacture of cement. That reduced their overheads. And they made profit, they paid to government. Flour mill was almost collapsing. We also made sure we took those steps. So we are doing that and we are ensuring that those things happen. But one thing again that I think we are going to do when we come into government is to empower women. And when I talk about empowering women, we are talking about actual empowerment of women. Women should be given the front seat, not the back seat. The time for them, women to be relegated to the back, is far gone. Women in this country have proven beyond all reasonable doubts that they can deliver. I remember when I was chief of staff and I did my performance appraisal of MBAs. There was one year where departments that were led by women came first, second, and third. And everybody was mad with me. I said, not my fault. They did well and they deserve it. And as such, they have to be commended for that. And I believe that we have women that should be put in more prominent places in governance. We should create opportunities for women to go to school. We should make sure that the exploitation of women as a result of poverty is reduced significantly. I don't think I would say we go for strict affirmative action because some women don't believe in that. But I think that conscious efforts need to be taken to ensure that women are given equal opportunities. They are not disadvantaged. And I know that women can compete. Youths also have to be addressed. I don't believe that youths we should only pay lip service to the issue of this. All we do for them, okay, we do the car wash, let the youths come and manage the car wash. No. For you to be able to cater for the youths, it starts with the type of education that you provide to the youths. Is the education you are providing to them relevant to the current needs of society? Will the education you give them be able to help them get jobs? Are you also creating opportunities for them to get employed? It is one thing to just be sending out thousands of students from the university every year who cannot even make themselves gainfully employed, or not even capacitated to be able to embark on any businesses, be able to improve themselves. So we need to ensure that we provide the right for education and create opportunities through private sector investment to ensure that the jobs are out there for them to be able to take full advantage and express their fullest potentials. So these are some of the things that we will do. Let me also mention one thing that is often not taken note of. That is the last thing I was doing as chief of staff before I left government. We realized at the time that there were so many overlaps in our laws, in our various acts, in our various instruments that establish these various MDAs. Over the years, we have made the mistake that when one department is not functioning very well, you don't dismantle it, you leave it, and then you set up another office to be able to perform the functions of that department, and you leave that one intact. And then we keep creating new commissions all the time, new agencies all the time, and the mandates of these agencies conflict with each other, and that creates so many bottlenecks along the implementation of care. We will make sure that we rationalize all of these commissions, all of these departments, all of these agencies, and ensure that we only maintain those ones that are very effective and efficient, clearly defined mandates, clearly defined roles and responsibilities, clearly defined deliveries, targets, and a mechanism put in place to ensure compliance and to monitor and ensure that they deliver. So these are just a few of the things we will do. Lastly, I have realized, having worked in government and in the private sector, that we have one area in this country that has been underutilized over the years: tourism. We have huge, huge potentials in the tourism sector that have been largely untapped. Nobody has really done much in that sector. And if you look at a small country like the Gambia, they are generating huge resources from tourism. We can do better in Sierra Leone. And I believe that when I become president, not if, when I become president in 2023, we are going to make tourism one of the most important ministries in this country. We are going to invest heavily in the tourism sector so we can attract a lot of investments in that sector, tourists coming into that sector, and use that as a way of generating enough revenue to support other aspects of the economy. And of course, if I can add one more thing we will do, we will also ensure that we add value across all sectors. Our agricultural produce, our mineral produce. We're not generating sufficiently from even our mines, minerals that we export, because we export everything raw. Our agricultural produce, we export everything raw. We don't add value. We can significantly improve on the revenues that we can generate as a government when we add value, when we process this country. So we will invest a lot of resources in that sense to ensure that we don't export. If we need to legislate on that, we will, but we will ensure that we add value before we export, so that government can realize a lot more.
I love the confidence. When, like the saying goes, you speak blessing to your life. So you're not saying if, but when I do become. I love that. The confidence. So now let's go back to women empowerment, which you actually elaborated on. Women empowerment, how best did the Dr. Ines Bikoma administration did in how best did they do to improve that department from your perspective or your observation?
I think you would, if there's one person, one president in this country that gave opportunities to women to actualize their potentials, it is President Kuruma. I'm sure you know, we were talking about the generals, like the General NRA, the head of EPA, the head, the Auditor General, so the Solicitor General, All of them were women, and they all performed exceedingly well. That's why I was saying that women have demonstrated that given the opportunity, they can deliver. And I'm saying we have to give them more opportunities. The same is true for the youths. He was able to appoint several young men and women into ministerial positions, into ambassadorial positions, and they all excelled themselves. So I believe we have to give them more opportunities in that regard, because we know that they can deliver and they have a proven track record in that area.
From your submission, can you sincerely say that you have learned from that experience and want to make it even better?
Precisely.
Thank you.
I,
Go ahead.
I have always seen myself as uh, a student from the School of Management. I have learned a lot from his governance style, and there are a lot of things I would reinforce. There are some things I would do slightly differently because no two people are exactly the same. But I think I've learned lessons from the way he has been doing his own thing. And I think when I come in as president, I will improve upon what he has been doing and deliver more to my people in this country.
Let's give some of the example of what you may love to emulate from the then president, if there's any of few that you can present to us. For an example, what would those things be that you would like to emulate from his as his strength coming from that administration?
He was a very good listener.
Okay.
He was a very good listener. So I think I would also listen a bit more. He was very patient. He could also be more patient. But more importantly, in the development sector, I believe in his prioritization. He came in and said within 100 days he will give light to the capital city. He delivered. And he said he will transform Salone into a workfield. You saw road construction going on all over the country. He said he will improve upon healthcare. He launched his free healthcare initiative. He increased significantly the number of beds available in hospitals. He improved significantly the number of students or medical doctors coming out of our medical institutions, and improved significantly the conditions of service of even lecturers in the universities, lecturers in the College of Medicine, teachers generally, and students generally, and ensured that we had the tools that we needed to deliver. I think I would build on those legacies that he left for us.
Thank you. What is your take on bipartisan?
What?
What are your views on bipartisan?
On bipartisan?
Yes,
Bipartisanship?
correct.
I believe that I believe in multi-party democracy. I believe that governments come and go. I believe that government is continuous from one regime to another. I believe in that perfectly. I don't believe in a winner takes all mentality in governance. President Kuruma demonstrated this when he came into governance in 2007. And that explains why this country was largely peaceful. I'm sure you all know that during the reign of President Kuruma, you will hardly see anybody carrying a gun on the streets of Sierra Leone. Hardly. Sierra Leone was ranked the most peaceful country in the whole of West Africa and one of the most peaceful in the world, primarily because of his governance style. We all know how President Kuruma was driving alone in his car all over Freetown. That was confidence personified. But more importantly, that was because he knew that nobody felt threatened. Everybody felt comfortable, everybody was about his business, everybody was allowed to actualize his or her fullest potentials. And that is what I think is good.
Thank you, sir. Let's talk about the youth. Let's go back to the youth. how would you tackle the ongoing issue with youth and violence and youth and drugs? We have now introduced so many new drugs, as in the example of alleged Kush, Tramadol, and the list goes on. How can you help to minimize or eradicate drugs that are severely, um, what's the word, that are would be that are a disadvantage to the youth population? How can you best help in that department?
This whole issue around drug abuse and the way it's affecting the youth is really unfortunate. But I think what that has fueled it is idleness. The youths are idle. The youths are frustrated. The youth don't have what to do. And because of that, they keep themselves busy in doing those things that do not help them in any way. What we will do when we come back into governance is to ensure that we create opportunities to get the youths occupied, give them what to do. To either be in trainings, to either be entrepreneurs doing their own businesses, or they will be working in offices and being gainfully employed and realizing their fullest potentials. Would make sure to create opportunities for the youth. And when I say gainfully employed, they should be employed and they should make money and be able to take care of themselves and take care of their families.
Currently, our platform is currently working with the youth of Sierra Leone, similarly to what you just stated. Some that are critically, um, in need, dying help, whether it has to do with shelter and also them getting back to their norm. How can we come? And we also find out that Sierra Leone does not have a rehabilitation center. Very critical. We hope that our platform will be the mouthpiece for the youth in efforts for the current administration to make provision in that department. Let's say, should in case they fail miserably, wherein there will be no, they are not able to provide the youth rehabilitation center prior to you someday becoming the next president. When you are blessed with that opportunity, would you make it a priority to see that we have at least one rehabilitation center in the Republic of Sierra Leone?
Mental health issues are fast becoming a global concern. Even in developed countries, it is a very serious issue. Sadly, Sierra Leone has not done much to be able to respond to the new trends in other countries. And yes, when I become president, we are going to ensure that we provide more facilities that will be able to address those issues. We have more rehabilitation centers, we'll have more facilities provided to ensure that when our youths, maybe because of drug abuse or because of stress, depression, and other things, are engaged in this or fall sick and have these problems, they should have somewhere that they are being taken care of. And we'll make sure that mental health issues do not become a reason why youths should become dropouts in life. Rather, even with those issues, we should be able to take care of them and make them successful.
Coincidentally, you have already highlighted some of the issue that the youth face in Sierra Leone, working closely with the youth currently in Sierra Leone, one of which is, as the saying goes, an idle mind is basically a room for the devil to attack. So now, some of the issue that is also holding them back is shelter, getting the daily support or the daily affirmation from people that really truly trust and believe that they can rise above whatever challenges that they're currently facing. But in the process also, we have challenged the current administration as to how they can best help us with shelter for these specific youth that I'm talking about. As you earlier stated that you will be a good listener, it is obvious that the current administration are part of our platform as we work tirelessly to bridge in the gap. If you become when you become the next president of the Republic of Sierra Leone, as you have promised us that you one of the the quality that you will want to emulate from the then president is to becoming that good listener or continue to be a good listener. So now let's say that you will have the opportunity to be watching this platform, and you hear the voice of youth in Sierra Leone as to what they need or what they lack, or maybe they will also literally find ways to get the concern to you. Would you ignore those concerns, or would you try your very best to use platform like this to help you or guide you to become a successful president?
You know, one thing you may wish to know is that over the last several days, I've been going around Freetown, visiting attire bases, talking to youths, and to understand their problems. You see, but that is where it starts. If you don't understand their problems, you will not be able to address them. What is more important, you have to understand it from their perspective. And I think that is what my visitations to these attire bases actually helped me to achieve. You know, and during my visits, I also took time off to sensitize the youth about COVID-19 and the need, and I distributed face masks to these attire bases so that people would also be able to protect themselves. You know, but you said a lot about providing housing for these youth. I don't, strictly speaking, believe in providing free housing. Provision of shelter should be left to the private sector, but government should be able to put in place mechanisms to ensure that young people get gainfully employed and they are able to then go and mortgage these properties and own them. Over the years, governments have tried to be building this column social housing, both to low cost. How have they ended? In the hands of the private sector. Government is not the best person to handle those types of things. See, certain things have to be left to the private sector,
So let me
who are
before
best suited.
I apologize, sir.
What government should do is to provide the conducive environment for them to flourish.
Okay.
And that is what we will do.
So coincidentally, Mr. Hassan Manso asked, his question is, can you ask Dr. Konteh, there is a massive homelessness in Salone affecting the less able families and youth. What plans has he got to build affordable housing and low-cost housing to solve this problem?
I said it will be a private sector endeavor. It will not be a government-led endeavor. What government can do is to provide the land and provide some incentives to the investors so that we can negotiate the prices downwards to
Okay.
allow
So that's what
people to
okay.
take full advantage
Yes.
of it. And
Because
that is what I will do.
so obviously what Dr. Konteh may afford may not necessarily be what Khadija will be able to afford. So I'm assuming the question of Mr. Hassan Mansour will be, how can we, like in the place of United States of America, and I'm sure United Kingdom, where they can build houses or homes where Sierra Leonean will be able to afford. It may not be
No,
necessarily free.
naturally. I mean,
Okay,
the houses will be in different categories and
correct.
different sizes and different costs. It will not be one size fits all, no. I mean, depending on your own social status, you'll be able to acquire that type of property. And I'm sure we see it happening in other African countries, even, and it happens in Europe and the Americas. So we are going to do the same in this country. What I will not encourage is a situation where we say, let government build this house for you. They will not pay. And at the end of the day, these houses will also not be taken good care of, and we will not be able to sustain it. So anything that is not sustainable, I will not encourage. We will ensure that we embark on things that are sustainable, and Other things that are best done by the private sector, and providing housing, whether the government will ensure that you work with the private sector, provide some incentives for them to ensure that prices are managed in such a way that our people can afford them.
Okay, so let's shy away from that a little bit. Let me bring this another question having to do with um, low cost, or let's call it a free housing, having to do with kids that are orphans. Often, let's say you have orphans in Sierra Leone. Let's say, hypothetically speaking, I'm just making it up, about 1 million, right? How can the government best work towards creating orphanage homes where they may not necessarily have to worry about any monthly expenditure in terms of payment, but it will gear towards, like, let's say, international donation that will carry the burden. What do you think about those areas?
Staying in orphanages should not be made a permanent structure. Just because you are an orphan does not mean that you are destined for failure.
All right, let me make it clear. So, like, let's
Orphan,
say,
let me come. Let me
no,
come.
I'm trying. Let me
What?
give it clear to you in terms of the age. Like, say, like 5 years to 10, or 5 years to 15. For, like, say, for a mother that delivered a child and then unfortunately lost their lives. Obviously, the child become orphaned. Maybe the father is not around, or the father died before the mother gave birth. So I'm just giving a weird scenario. So kids in that type of situation, what can we
Yeah,
do?
that's what I was saying.
Okay.
Kids in that, we have orphanages in this country, but of course, many of them are not well kept, and government is largely not providing any support to these orphanages. We will therefore embark on programs to ensure that we can identify some of these orphanages, including SOS, that is doing very well across the country, and provide support. But I'm saying it should not be a permanent structure. Kids, orphans should be supported and given opportunities to get out of that dependency syndrome, to become more independent, more affluent, and be able to take care of themselves and live successful lives going forward. Keeping them perpetually under those situations is in itself depressing. We should get them out into society, to reintegrate into society, and uh, be able to understand these things.
So, in other words, a short term goal where it's only a temporal, not a permanent, in efforts to help them to becoming independent and productive citizen, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And in certain situations, and if the standards or the requirements or the prescriptions are met, we will also consider adoption as an option and make it not too difficult for you to adopt some of these children. I do know that there are certain cases in which some people want to adopt certain children. We will try to ensure that when, if we can vet these potential people who want to adopt, these people, vet them well and be sure that they want to take care of these children well, we can allow for adoption. But we have to make sure, if we are doing that, we also have a system in place in the Ministry of Social Welfare to be able to monitor the way in which these children are being taken care of. We don't want a situation wherein you are people adopt children to go and exploit them. And especially how we've heard about these cases, people come to Africa, adopt children, take them to other countries, and they end up in prostitution rings. We don't want that to happen. They end up being exploited, being treated as slaves. We don't want it to happen. So we will monitor that process very well on a case by case basis and ensure that we have the best for these children. So that just because they've lost their parents should not mean that they are now destined for failure in life. We should be given opportunities to be able to get out that vicious cycle of poverty and deprivation, become affluent, and become successful in society.
Thank you. Let's go back to the youth. We're a firm believer on this platform that the youth of Sierra Leone are our future. How can the elders best prepare them for the future? How important, in other words, how important it is to create a cabinet that accommodate both the elders as well as the youth.
Well, I told you that this whole issue about youths and take children starts from the home, where they are brought up in their homes. What they learn from their parents, from their uncles, from their aunts. Then it moves on to the school. What type of education is being provided to these children? Are we training these children to become gainfully employed? Or are we just still going for this grammar school type of education, targeting white collar jobs that will end up having these children being dropouts? You see, when the 6 334 system was introduced, it was introduced believing that not everybody is cut out for the grammar school type of education. Some people are cut out for vocational and other types of training, you know, in polytechnics, etc., to become our plumbers, our carpenters, our masons, but professionals. We've seen that work very well in Germany, for example. You know, we are after you finish your basic education, then you can go in. But even during this period, the curriculum is such that you are introduced to some of these subjects. The equipments are available in this school, and the children will generally be able to start identifying where their skills, where their interests lie. And so they specialize in those areas, and then they go later on and they are used in society and things move on in that way. So those are the types of things we think we'll do. So that let us make this 6 3 3 4 system really meaningful. Let us ensure that the kids that come out of our school system are useful to society and not dropouts. Either they become gainfully self-employed or they become they get jobs in the private sector or they get jobs in government. But there should be something for them to do, something for them to contribute positively to society and for them to help their family.
Corruption. We refer to corruption on this platform as terminal illness that is designed to break or destroy any economy around the world. How best would you handle corruption or minimize corruption?
You know, in Sierra Leone, we have the Corruption Commission, which was set up. It was given additional powers in 2008, and recently they even further gave more powers to the Anti-Corruption Commission to be able to handle corruption cases. The problem, however, is that it has not been even-handed in the way in which it addresses problems of corruption. There are certain instances wherein just a rumor, just hearsay, is enough for you to be arrested and detained. There was a time, and I am a victim of that. There was a time when they just came up with some weird idea that I went to Japan and I was given $11 million, and I came to this country with $11 million, and I chopped it. They arrested me, locked me up for 4 days, and after 4 days, they released me without charge. But now we have heard about tangible cases of corruption where people have even confessed to those acts both on national and international radio and social media. They literally confessed to these acts, but they're not even being investigated. Such people should be detained or at least invited for interview, like they detained us for just a rumor. You know, I think we should be even-handed. When I become president, I would make sure that the Anti-Corruption Commission is even-handed in the way it applies its rules and mandate.
So
To
that's it.
ensure that
Okay.
people are treated fairly, people are considered innocent until they are proven guilty in a court of law, We will not try anybody in the court of public opinion. But one thing I can promise you all is that we will ensure that we fight corruption, and we will fight it to the last, and we will ensure that we lead by example.
That takes us to selective justice. We have heard so many cries in that department. Has there been any change, or has it got worse? Or do you have any experience in that department when it comes to selective justice?
I think that I just mentioned the case of selective justice in the way in which the Anti-Corruption Commission, for example, uh, administers its mandate. You know, in some cases, an accusation or a rumor is enough for you to be arrested and detained. In other cases, even where there is a complete confession, no investigations even is just pushed under the carpet. And even in the judiciary, I mean, I'm sure you are all aware about the way in which cases brought to the courts by the APC, for example, is just simply ignored, and other cases brought in by the SLPP were fast-tracked, MPs kicked out of parliament, etc., etc. That is not fair. We are even seeing how now there's a COI, there's a white paper, appeals have been made to the Court of Appeal, and the cases are just dragging on endlessly. Look, these types of issues are not helpful. The role of the judiciary in dispensing justice is very, very important, and they go a long way to ensure peace and stability in any country. And we will ensure that the judiciary is kept independent, is empowered, it is strengthened, it is provided with the resources that it needs to dispense justice without bias, without fear, without favor.
Thank you, sir. Let's talk about advocacy or civil society activists, their roles then and their roles now. What is your take on that or your observation in that department?
The role of the civil society in the case of Sierra Leone is really unfortunate. If we go by what we hear, that nowadays we even have civil society activists that are on the payroll of government, and we Africanist Press has promised to publish these names. If that is true, then I can say it's really unfortunate. As somebody who was myself an activist, that is the last thing I would do. I remember when I led a team to Togo for elections, to part of the civil society delegation to monitor elections in Togo. Zainab Bangura was then one we appointed as the head of delegation. I was then the head of civil society in West Africa, and I brought in Zainab as the head of team. When I was invited to the foreign ministry, and they offered to take care of our hotel bills, to rent cars for us, etc., etc. We turned it down. We said no, we won't accept it. Because by accepting those things, you compromise yourself. And you know, if these rumors we are hearing about civil society compromising themselves by accepting uh, undue favors from the wrong places, then I think it's really, really unfortunate. It should not happen. And you know, we expect civil society. I remember when APC was in power, we had a very vocal civil society, very vocal. They were addressing issues, they were criticizing, but no, they've just gone silent. Just gone silent. That's really unfortunate. And with all the human rights abuses that are taking place all over the country, with all this whole issue about the Auditor General's report and the confessions that we are hearing on radio and television and social media, not much is being heard from the civil society. As a former civil society activist myself, it pains inside to see such happen, because I believe that as civil society activists, we should be the voice for the voiceless. We should be the ones to agitate justice for everyone. Be the ones to articulate the needs and concerns of every citizen. Sadly, it is not happening to an appreciable degree, and that is also concern.
Thank you. Teachers and medical practitioners, we have heard a lot of complaints about their salary or them not receiving their salary. How can you best improve that area when you're given that opportunity by God to lead us?
I am not a medical practitioner. The internet is misbehaving a bit.
Yes, I said
Yes,
we have
I'm
heard.
not a medical practitioner.
Yeah,
I'm an academic doctor. But having served in government, I do know that I have a little bit. I think I mentioned earlier on about the way in which the conditions of service of health personnel were improved.
mhm,
But you know what I'm telling you? No amount of money you pay to medical doctors, to health professionals will ever be enough for the type of work that they are doing. But I think they should be properly remunerated. The tools that they need for them to perform their jobs should be provided. The protection that they need in that sector should also be provided. When that one is missing, I think it's a serious problem. But I think, but more importantly, you have to make sure they have the right training. If they don't have the right training, it's a problem. And after they've been given the right training, should also be given the right type of equipment that they would need to be able to perform their duties. So we have to also try to, as a country, to invest a little bit more into indigenous research into various issues. You know, in our villages, our people used to have all types of medicines for all types of diseases. How much research has gone into really looking at these medicines to actually understand them better and be able to improve upon them and even be able to develop them and market them later. Not much is being done. And most times when these people die, they die with their expertise, wherever the source of their expertise is coming from is space too. But we know that I remember when we were at Jala, we had this lecturer, Mr. Toure. I think he's late now. This man understood all types of leaves, understood all types of medicines that can be made from these leaves and things like that. And he was doing some small research without sufficient funding. Such people should have been funded to be able to do more in-depth research and be able to come up with different types of medicines. Look at what is happening, even this corona that is killing people left, right, and center in the developed countries. I'm sure you are aware that for many of our Sierra Leonean brothers or African brothers and sisters, they are using our bangba and other concoctions. Quote unquote, bangba is not an English word. But they are using local medicines, local herbs to be able to cure themselves. And they have not relied on the Western medicines that are being prescribed for them. So we have these uh, uh, opportunities in Africa. We have these diseases in Sierra Leone, and I think we have to invest a little bit more into innovative research to be able to develop some of these potentials and see how we can also put them out there and compete on the international market.
Let's go back. Thank you. Let's go back to your educational background from your resume, which is referred to as your CV back in Sierra Leone. It is obvious that you have passion for education and strongly believe in the importance of continued education.
Can you please speak to the mic? I can hear you well.
Can you hear me? Oh, I'm sorry. Let me increase the volume. So I'm going back to your educational background. From your resume, which is referred to as your civic back in Sierra Leone, it is obvious that you have passion for education and strongly believe in the importance of continued education. From who or where did you attribute such passion for education? Secondly, many will look at your profile and refer to you as a technocrat. How did your political career came into existence?
Well, thank you very much. My passion for education is the right from my parents. I told that my father was a teacher, and I grew up in the home of a teacher. And all I knew around me was education. And I've grown up with that passion. The same is true for my wife. His father was also a teacher, and so she has that passion. And I have also grown up as a professional teacher. I went to university, I studied education, I taught in the secondary school, I taught in the university. I have a passion for education. And because our family has a passion for education, we have implanted that even in our kids, they also have a passion for education. That is why today, as I speak, our family, our kids, they have a school that we are helping them to manage, that they have established, the Leon Special Academy, there in Juba. We need to help bring up champions, provide quality education for our kids to help make them better people tomorrow. And that has been my life, my passion. And I feel very much at home whenever I am around the premises of the school and I play with the kids, I interact with the kids and the teachers. Those are my best moments. And when I entered politics, part of what I've always tried, and even throughout my career, I've always, in every office and with every opportunity, tried to nurture and mentor others to make them better people. And that, I think, is what I would continue to implant in the minds of anybody I come across.
Excellent. Thank you. So now let's talk about your mentor. Who would you consider to be your mentor?
My mentor, my father, even though he's now late, a very caring man, a man that sacrificed everything for his children. He would stop at nothing to ensure that we have quality education. He invested in the education of his children, and I would always remember him, see him as my mentor, and I'm taking up from him.
Would you consider yourself as an individual who had a humble beginning or not necessarily?
I have a very humble beginning. My father was very poor.
Wonderful. So can we,
Yeah, he got married to bring us up.
good, can we expand on that for that young man living in Congo markets or um, Bombay Street that is watching this and not only heard the, I do not want them to just focus on the beautiful end of Dr. Richard Konteh. Dr. Richard Konteh, the PhD, the double masters, and the beauty, all the beautiful things that you work so hard for. How can we empower them from that humble beginning where they can hear the story and you not ever giving up to where you are today? Can we expand on that, please?
I want every Sierra Leonean, every young boy and girl to know that they have an opportunity to excel in life. They should never allow their current circumstance to define their future situation. They should realize that it is possible. If Richard Konteh was able to make it, they can make it. And all that is required is a determination to succeed and a commitment to ensuring that it happens. You don't need to be very affluent to succeed in life. I inherited nothing material from my parents. I have worked tirelessly, sacrificed a lot for whatever I have in life. And I believe that if youths sacrifice the same, I keep Whenever I have a chance to sit with my friends and younger boys and girls, I tell them, when I was in university, I was in first year when I bought the stationery that I used to print my dissertation when I got to final year. The bed I used when I graduated from university, I bought when I was in third year. I've always tried in different ways to be some form of a businessman, to multiply whatever little I had. When I was in the university in Germany, that is when I started building my house, my first house in Juba, as a student. Every year I would buy some second-hand cars, fly to Sierra Leone, sell them, buy my land, do some bricks, and then go back. The next year again, I would buy 2-3 cars, come back to Sierra Leone. And I was lucky, God blessed me. I was able to sell them and I made some profit. So I've always been a businessman throughout my life. And that, I think, has been helpful. On the side, I've never put my eggs in one basket. I've always tried to see how I can multiply the possibilities available to me. And that explains why I am where I am today. And I will encourage every young person to go for it. Know what you believe in. Know what you want. Go for it. You'll get it.
So let's rewind a little bit, right? I want to ask a few things. First, I'm curious as to what age you were when you were in that university in Germany, and at the same time, you were brave enough, or you were guided by God to make sure that you made foundation back home. That's one. Then secondly, when you talked about humble beginning, about your dad not having the upper hand, what was his can you re-echo some of the challenges that, or the sacrifices that he made to see that you guys were educated? Like specifically, I want you to take this opportunity to really motivate or inspire someone else, someone out there. Come on in.
I was 31 years old when I went for my PhD in Germany. And that was when I started the process of building my house. And it took me several years to complete it. But I did it bit by bit. I have always lived a very simple
Yes,
and honest
I can
human
see
life.
that.
Very simple and honest human life. I don't believe in largesse. I don't believe in big spending. I don't believe in big lifestyles. I believe in simple lifestyles. I believe in living on the basics. And that is why, whether I am employed or not employed, it really doesn't matter. I'm still Richard Konteh. That is why Richard Konteh, the chief of staff, is the same as Richard Konteh, the unemployed guy. Didn't change anything. And that, I think, has helped me in life to be able to get to where I am. And I've maintained that posture.
Okay, so we have an internet
From the time
issue. Okay,
I
there we go.
started life as a youth teacher now.
So wait, before you go to the next phase, right? So you did a lot of savings, in other words. Whenever you had the opportunity or you were blessed with whatever finance or whatever income you make, whether it's allowance or whatever the case may be, you were very good in managing your income, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So go ahead to the next. I want you to really expand.
And one thing I always ensured, I made sure my allowance that was given to me always kept me till I returned to my parents. And I always made sure I had some change. There was never a time when I would go to college and then midway ask my parents for a dime. Whatever little they gave me, I made sure I managed it. Whatever little I got from my allowance, from my scholarship in college, I made sure I managed it and found a way of multiplying it. And that is why I said, for example, I was able to buy my own books. I was able to buy my own stationery for my business. I didn't have my ask my parents. I was able to buy my own bed and chairs and things. But when I graduated from college, when I went to teach, I went with my own furniture. I didn't use furniture from my parents.
Wow.
That has been part of my life, and that has been how I've grown up. I've tried to be very independent.
So wait a
I'm
second.
a
You
very
mean
independent
wait a
person.
second. You mean college in Sierra Leone, correct?
Yes,
And it was during that time, whatever allowance you were given by your parents, you actually saved that and managed that and bought your own
yes,
furniture and moved on with life. Oh my God,
yes,
interesting. Wow.
yes.
Amazing. Amazing. Go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah. No, that's just it.
So now let's go back to that. What sacrifice did he made? What was he doing literally to ensure that you stayed in school or to sponsor you throughout your education?
You know, our father was an ordinary teacher, and he depended only on his salary. Unfortunately for him, he had 8 children, all of us going to school, and all of us doing well.
Yeah.
So even if he used all of his salary just to pay our fees, it would be enough. So he had to farm to be able to take care of the home. Our mother used to do petty trading. I particularly was always very close to my mother. When my mother travels, for example, I will be the one who will mix the flour, wake up in the morning, go to the kitchen, fry the cakes, carry them on my head, go to the market and sell. I remember even when I was a teacher in Kamakwe Secondary School, I will prepare the cakes in the morning, take them to school, and then during lunch, I would come and stand and sell to the students. And then after school, I would take the cakes and go to the market and sell before going home. I did all of those things with my parents just to make sure that our ends could meet. So that is how humble my background has been, and that is how simple and committed I have been to doing things. And that has been Richard. And that is why to this day I can do anything just to survive and make money.
So when you
As
see
long as I don't have to do the wrong thing.
yeah, so when you see that woman in Congo markets selling the same thing, whether it's cake or whatever it is, a petty trader, you are able to relate that pain to your
Exactly.
humble beginning.
Exactly. So I
And
did it myself.
we will assume that when you're blessed with that position, you'll be able to hear their cry, if even they're not able to say so, correct?
Yes.
Beautiful. Wow. I think the world needed to hear that because many will look at it as just Dr. Richard Konteh, the PhD, the man, the chief of staff, the X, Y, and Z. But they also need to hear the sacrifice that you have
And
made.
even when I was in the university, up to the time I graduated, I will go to the forest to fetch firewood for my mother.
Let's talk about that woman. Obviously, is someone that means a whole lot to you. Let's talk about her and what you learned from that woman.
My mother was very religious, very loving, very caring. She supported her husband. Without our mother, there's no way our father would have succeeded in bringing us up and taking us through the world. And our mother ensured that she supported our father, she took care of the home. And each time when we were leaving for college, she would always find a way of complementing whatever little our father provided. So she was the backbone of the family. She sacrificed everything. She did not have one of the best of family life because apart from us, the children, they also had several people in the home, family members, non-family members, that our parents were taking care of. My father would visit one village and then would see one boy walking around the street. We ask, is this boy in school? They would say no. He says, why? The parents can't pay. He would take the boy, come to the house. The next day, the boy starts attending and will live with us in the house. So that has been our life. And that meant even the little that we have used to take care of us, they had to spread it amongst others that are with us in the home. That was our life. That's how we grew up, caring for others. Our Father believed in caring for others. That is why for us also, we will never lack. God will always find a way of supporting us because our parents invested so much in others. And I think we will also benefit from that.
So I want to ask two things. So can we assume that you understand the word empathy and you know how to relate that to your fellow Sierra Leonean? Should, in case
Yes,
God bless. Okay.
yes.
Secondly, you managed to take me to a place where I wanted not to go. I did not want to go. Let's go back to dad. Dad was your mentor, a teacher. Unfortunately, what he earned at that time was not sufficient for him to maintain the family or to maintain your school tuition and that of your siblings. As a result, he was forced to also do additional work, which is farming. And not only that, you were also a petty trader, helping your mom in a way, just so that way you can make ends meet.
Yes,
Right there, you can relate to some of these teachers. Obviously, even then, he was not, whatever he was earning was not enough to maintain the family. How can you assure
yes.
us as Sierra Leonean that you can connect dad's pain to the pain of the current Sierra Leonean that are in that same profession or the career path as a teacher? How can you guarantee us that you will give them enough for them to, because the teachers make the lawyer, the PhD, the Dr. Richard Konteh, the lawyers, and the list goes on. The teachers are the, after God, the teachers are the one who create these titles. So how can you assure Sierra Leoneans that not only would you not shame them and shame them at cutting tree because they did something wrong, but rather channel it a better way or through the judiciary system? And secondly, how can we ensure that they will have enough and fear for what they are doing so that they will refrain from doing anything that will subject them to the example of the cotton tree saga?
Like I said, for the health workers, I said no amount of payment will be enough to pay health workers when you consider what they do all the time. No amount of payment will be enough. The same is true for the teacher. No amount of payment will be enough for the teacher. When you think of a child, tabula rasa, blank slate, then that teacher starts developing that child until that child becomes a PhD. No amount of money can pay for that. However, the difference between the teachers of yesterday and the teachers of today lies in the fact that teachers of yesterday were committed, were devoted to what they were doing. I told you that my father used to go around the villages visiting the children that were coming to school to find out how they were doing in their homes. Child is absent. My father would go and find out why that child is absent. He always knew all the kids in the school. They were so committed to what they were doing, and that is the difference. Difference between those teachers now and the teachers of today. Teachers should be the light for their children. They should be role models. Is that the case today? Maybe yes for some, maybe not for others. That is the difference between the teachers of yesterday and teachers of today. But on the whole, teachers are very, very important. They are the ones that prepare and build the future. They are the ones that will ensure that we have a better country. Without good teachers, without good health workers, we will not have a society.
Thank you. Before we conclude, I want us to revisit some of these sensitive positions that you have held in that beautiful land that we refer to as Sierra Leone. You already expressed um, your love for your former position as a deputy minister, sorry, minister of trade and industry. Let's talk about your what can you recollect from you being the chief of staff? What was that like? What were the highs and the lows that you can recall?
Well, the first thing about the being chief of staff is that, that position is not statutory. It is not in the constitution. It's a new position. Maybe when they amend the constitution and have a new one, it will be provided for the new constitution, but it's not in the current one. However, in all societies now around the world, that position has been created because you are like the program director in the office of the president, and you oversee all affairs of government. And that is why I'm able to understand about the workings of government. They are also an interface with the legislature and with the judiciary, so that you are there to ensure that the executive, the judiciary, and the legislature work together to deliver good governance for the country. And regrettably, what has happened over the years is that we have had challenges with the way in which justice has been dispensed in this country. And we would really plead the judiciary to try and improve on that. Parliament is also a very important arm of government. They legislate, they provide oversight to the executive, and that oversight responsibility is one that they should take very seriously. If they sack their responsibility, if they do not exercise that responsibility to the maximum, then it will affect the way in which the other arms of government. And the executive should not be allowed to interfere into the workings of the legislature. And the judiciary should not also be involved in any attempts that are made to undermine the proper functioning of Parliament. That is regrettably what happened when the 10 APC MPs were removed from Parliament, and that action was sanctioned by the judge in this country. That is a very bad precedent, and that will haunt this country for a very long time. The economy over the last few years has also suffered greatly due to various problems which I already highlighted earlier. And I think if there is no shift from this current government-based approach, high taxation, killing of private sector, I cannot see light at the end of the tunnel. They have to completely change from that pattern to a new way that would see the private sector as partners in development. You should know that they need a vibrant, successful private sector if government has to succeed. Because we in the private sector are the ones that provide the resources that the government needs for it to finance its various programs and activities.
Let's touch about your experience as the former Deputy Minister of Finance and Economic Development.
Yeah, when I was appointed, I'm not an economist. Let me make that point clear. So one would find it strange that I work in finance, but they merged two ministries, finance and economic development. And so I was actually Deputy Minister of Finance one, but with responsibility for economic development. So I was responsible for overseeing the public investment program, looking at our relations with the development partners and those types of issues, looking at the local councils and funding to local councils and funding to various development programs around the world. That was mainly my schedule. I only got involved in fiscal issues when the minister was not there and I was active. And of course, because I was a senior, a second in command in the ministry, invariably I got entangled into the financial matters of government. But that was one of the best things that happened to me in my political career was that I started my career in governance in the Ministry of Finance as deputy minister. It allowed me to learn, and I took advantage of that to really study. I would engage the experts in the ministry whenever I actually. I remember whenever I'm asked to take papers to cabinet at very short notice, I would invite the directors to my office, and I would sit down and ask them to teach me and explain to me. But I was humble enough going to invite my director into my office and say, "Hey, my friend, you are the expert. I'm not an expert. Come and teach me."
I remember
You know?
you saying
And
the
they will
same.
explain to me, I will understand, and then I will go out there and articulate myself well. And that is what
Yeah.
helped me to succeed. I did not come into that office believing that I know everything. No, and that is a big part of me. I did not come into any office believing I know everything. I come into an office ready to learn on the job, to learn in the process, to make myself a better person. And I would use my past experience and whatever I learned on the job to do better. But in almost every office I have done, I've always excelled. The admiration of many.
Interestingly, you have made the exact statement the last time I sat with you about a year or two ago. Exactly what you said. You were humble enough to ask when the need arose. Exactly what you said. Wow. Interesting. So if, like I always say, if you've been in line now for we don't catch you. Interesting. Before we go, what would be your wish or your hope for Sierra Leone?
My wish for Sierra Leone is that it will be a peaceful country, a country in which we can all live as one, a country in which nobody will be disadvantaged by virtue of his tribe, his region, his religion, or his political affiliation. A country in which we'll be given equal opportunities to be able to actualize our fullest potentials. That is Sierra Leone Richard Konteh will provide when I become president of the Republic of Sierra Leone.
Dr. Richard Konteh, former Chief of Staff, former Minister of Trade and Industry, former Deputy Minister of Finance and Economic Development. We have been blessed to have you today in our studio. Thank you so very much for taking time out of your very busy schedule to honor our invitation, but more importantly, to be so patient as you answer critical question on behalf of Sierra Leonean. I hope I have been fair enough with you tonight. Thank you once again for your time.
Thank you, Khadija.
You're welcome.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you. And we wish you nothing but the absolute best.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. So we'll take a break and we'll be right back and then I'll give my closing statement. Thank you guys for your patience.